All right, folks, this might be your last coding video. So the goal today is to help you think about how you can start to visualize your results. So at this point, you have trend estimates and you want to summarize these because your goal is to explain how these trends vary across the Northeastern US and what they might be related to. So what I'm going to have you do, go ahead and log into Moodle, go ahead and plug in your drive if you haven't. I'm going to navigate to project 2. And we have our site list and site characteristics here, but I'm actually going to show you a faster way to visualize information today in MATLAB. And again, you can take the long way and do ArcGIS, and I've linked stuff for you to do that, but I really recommend trying this in MATLAB. So go ahead over here, you're going to click on your site characteristics, the MAT file, click download. It says it can't scan it, that's fine. It's going to download anyway. Find this in your folder. It's already going to try to load it in MATLAB, but we want to make sure it's continuous. So you're going to find this in your folder. Going to go to downloads, and there it is. I'm going to copy it. And if you haven't plugged in your drive, go ahead and do that or pause this. I'm going to navigate down to my drive, my CE352 folder, my project 2, and my time series folder, and then I'm going to paste it. So I just did a Command V or Control V, and if I scroll all the way down, I see I have watershed values.mat down there. So let's see what it's got in there. I'm going to move this out of the way. I am going to navigate on MATLAB to my folder. There's my drive, project 2, time series. And I'm going to say open that folder, and it just opens it for me over here. I am finding my most recent file I've been working with. I'm going to open that up. Should have all of your trends in it now, all of that fun stuff. I have a bunch of different things I'm looking at just to try to keep up with you guys because everyone's doing slightly different things, which I think is really cool and what I want you to do. I'm going to scroll down and make sure I can see that file. And there it is, watershedvalues_.mat. I'm going to just double click on that. And this is all of that information. This will say 288 when you do it, but for now, don't worry about it, that we have related to our sites. And as I said, just like magic, when you load it in, it's going to say 288.51. So this is our 288 sites, and we have all sorts of information about that. Some of these that are categorical, we might not care about, right? We got states, we have reference and non-reference, which is sort of interesting, but the stuff that you might care about is the percentage of forested land, or if you're someone interested in urban stuff, you might care about imperviousness. And the definitions for all of these, just as a quick reminder, are up on our project 2 page where I have the abbreviations and what each characteristic means. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make you a site figure. So I'm going to just say clear. We took a look at those watershed values. Go back to your code. If you have any plotting, you can get rid of that for now because we're going to start adding new plots. So our goal is to make a site figure. And I'm going to add some space here just so I can do that. What I want to do, oh no, we want to zoom in. What I want to do, the first thing I want to do is load that watershedvalues.mat folder and make sure everything is in the same folder, because the goal is when you hand in this project, you're also just going to zip this folder and send it to me. So load watershedvalues.mat is going to run my whole code and then do that analysis for watershed values. I am going to do something different. I am going to use, I'm going to write down scatter, because a scatter plot is what we typically use in this class, right, to visualize the relationship between two values. Then I'll make a bunch of circles. What we want to do is something a little different called a geoscatter. And in this case, I want to geoscatter some things that are in that watershed values list. So I'm going to pop that open just so we can see it again. And a geoscatter is just going to make you a really nice figure. So I'm going to say lat gauge and what is it called? LNG, longitudinal gauge. And it's telling you the information that it wants. So A is actually the size of the dots. I'm just going to put down 25. It's optional. Color, I do care about, and I want to have some site characteristic visualized. So you could do any of these characteristics over here that you care about. Let's do forest just for fun. So I'm going to start typing that in. Whoop. And if you get stuck like that, you can always click back and start suggesting. And then I'm going to say to make those dots filled. All right. I can just run this part of the code because I'm not visualizing my trends yet. So I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say evaluate just for the purposes of time. So we are doing a geoscatter. And just like that, you get a map of anything you're interested in. You can add a color bar here. So this is showing us percentage of forested cover. You can see the urban areas over here, lower percentages, and our other colors over here indicating higher percentages. So with these plots, I just want to remind you, you can save them. You can save them as JPEGs or PDFs or PNGs to bring them into PowerPoint, and they're going to be super high quality. But I want to remind you, you can still try this in ArcGIS, and it's going to take a little bit longer, but this is a pretty cool way to be able to get a map in basically 5 seconds or less. So just for fun, I want to try something else. I want to try Max. Let's try Max or Strahler Max. There we go. I'm going to run just those 2 lines of code to look at what they do. And there we go again. I can click on the little color bar thing up here. I can change that color bar, but that is how much energy it takes to make a map, which is pretty darn cool. All right, something else I do want you to do is I'm going to show you a couple different ways that you can visualize your trend results today. So what I'm going to do just to make my life easy is I'm going to run all of my trend analysis and make it so that I get all of my trends over here. There's lots of different ways you might want to look at your trends. So I'm going to talk about a few. We're going to talk about scatter plots. We're going to talk about plotting the trend itself. So maybe you have sites with big trends or small trends and you want to look at those. I want us to talk about histograms, and I think those are the main ones. So as my trend analysis runs, anytime we're making a new figure, you're just going to want to add a little figure code to it to tell it, hey, I'm popping up another figure. And once you have this code, the reminder is you can change any of this to whatever you want to visualize. All right, so I'm caught up and I'm going to focus on mostly using BFI, but I also calculated a couple different trends. So I have a trend in MaxQ that I'm going to play around with. So scatter plots. Some of you have some different trends where you might care about how similar are the trends between one metric and another. So what we can use is a scatter plot. And scatter, it's going to start telling you what it wants. It wants an X, a Y, a size, a color, and filled or other things. So in this case, I'm going to do a scatter plot between my trend BFI and my trend max Q. And I'm going to make them 25. I can always increase that. And for now, I just want it to be black. So I can say 0, 0, 0 makes it black. Doesn't really matter. You could choose a color if you wanted. We're going to change that in a bit. And I can say, okay. So I'm going to select just that part once my whole trend analysis code is written. And look at those trends. That's sort of interesting. You could add lines at zeros to show, right, you have a ton of variability here. All right. What if we wanted to see if there's some sort of characteristic that might explain those differences in trends. Instead of 0, 0, 0, you could actually put in one of those site characteristics. So maybe I'm curious if snow matters for that. I'm going to put in that characteristic and I'm going to run it, and I can pop up this guy on the left. Maybe I'm looking at that and like Professor Keller told me that the font sizes are pretty small. I can change. You have that whole cheat sheet that I gave you at the start of the semester to look back at. I can change my font size. It says set it, change my axis, and specifically the font size to a size 16. You can change that, and there we go. So I do see a little bit of influence from snow. Maybe you just want to know, okay, is maximum related to snow? Again, I'm going to say copy the whole thing, make your life easy, and instead of relating trend BFI to max Q, I'm going to say just plot trend BFI or trend max Q versus snow. And I can run and look at that relationship. Maybe you care about imperviousness or something else. I actually might flip that. I think having the characteristic on the x-axis might make more sense. I'm just flipping them here. And I can run that guy again. Let's just see what that looks like. I sort of like that better. It doesn't look like there's any relationship between the trend and snow, right? But there will be a relationship with something else. So this is a way for you to start to play around with that. Two things, and it's, I guess what I would say is it's interesting if there is a relationship. It's also interesting if you think there might be a relationship and one doesn't appear. So that's really the analysis I'm looking for you to do with these trends. What do you expect to be related to the trends you've calculated? And are those things related, or are they really not? I want to know your thoughts on this, because that's the analysis and the understanding that I'm really looking for. You might want to also look at a histogram. So the function hist is an easy way to make a histogram. We did this before. You can always look back at your old code. Let's take a look at, actually, let's do my BFI trend, just out of curiosity. And if I add a number after this, it sets the number of bins. You can always change that, increase it, make it bigger or smaller. And all of a sudden I have a nice histogram that's showing me, oh, most of my trends are pretty close to 0, but I have some that are above and below. If I wanted to increase the number of bins, let's make that 20. I can run that same code, and all of a sudden I have a little bit more resolute of a histogram. Again, we can add code that increases the font size. My encouragement, you can always add labels in MATLAB. You can also add them really easily in PowerPoint. Don't feel weird doing that. That's totally okay. The last thing I want to show you, and see it's angry at me, it's telling me, hey, use histogram. Both of them are going to work the same way. You can use either one. A couple people have come to me and said, okay, I just want to actually see what my trend means. If you're one of those people, you're going to want to finish watching this video, because I'm going to show you how to write that code. Again, I don't expect you to know how to do this. You're following along, making sure you understand what each of these lines mean. Our goal is to make you dangerous, but not an expert. So what I'm going to do, if I want to plot the trend for one site, maybe you have a site that you go through, like if I look at trend BFI, maybe I go through and find one of these has a big value. So I'm just looking for something that's a little unusual. 58 is sort of weird. Let's see. You can always sort and make things do this for you. Just sort of curious. Okay, 255, I like. That's a bigger positive trend. So let's look at what's actually happening. I'm going to set this to site 255. Our goal is to make a scatter plot and then to add the trend on top of it. And we're going to plot the years that you looked at versus your metric. In this case, I'm just going to show you this for BFI year. We can add site here. What that's going to do is pull this and say, okay, find the 255th row. You could change this to any number you want. And I am going to add a hold on command because I want to plot something else on top of it. So I want to grab the coefficients for the linear fit for BFI for just that year. So I'm again using my polyfit function. You guys have already done this. We've got year and BFI. I can copy this code exactly right there. And I got to tell it it's a linear fit. So degree of polynomial fit is just 1. Now I have those coefficients. I can use those coefficients to plot a line on top of my data. So I'm going to use year again. And I'm going to use year to fit that relationship. I multiply year by the slope, the first value in that trend estimate, and then I'm going to add est underscore BFI to, that is the intercept. And in this case, I'm going to make that line red just so I can really see it clearly. And because I know I'm probably going to want to make it bigger, I'm going to put that set code below it. So again, I'm going to highlight all of this. Whoop, shit. And we're going to say evaluate. And just like that, I have a visualization of the trend at that site. And you can see there's a lot of variability. So the blue points are the actual estimated BFI values for each year at site number 255. The red line is showing you the fitted trend line. And you can see that site is going up. Let's look at a different value. So let's say you want to look at site number 3. All you have to do is change site 23 there. And look at that, we have a negative trend. So maybe you want to look a little bit more carefully at some of the sites where you have big trends or small trends and try to figure out what's going on. Those would be good visuals as well. As a reminder, you can always label your x-axis and y-axis. I wouldn't add an x label to this because the year's already there, but I might add a y label and say BFI, and BFI is dimensionless. And let's run that again. And look at that, now I got a label. So I know it was a lot of work to get the trend values. Now you get to do the cool part. Last but not least, I want us to do a geoscatter that is your trends. So you care about how those trends vary. We can use the same code, the same geoscatter with my latitude and my longitude. Now I'm going to add one of my trend estimates. I'm going to do trend BFI just because I want to see what that looks like. Oh, crap, wrong spot. So up here, I want to color instead of by Strahler max or precipitation or whatever, I want to color it by trend BFI. And I am going to highlight that and say run. So your trends might look weird. If you're getting this out, right, we vary from positive 14 to negative 0.04. Maybe you don't like that range, or maybe you want a different color map. So MATLAB actually has a bunch of different color maps that you can use. And I'm going to scroll down to show you what all of those are. Here they are. Spring is sort of interesting because it is a little bit diverging. So is cool. Maybe you want to try something else. It's up to you. I am going to try a autumn. So to change the color map, all I say is color map autumn, the name of the color map. And I will link this page so that you can grab these. And if I highlight this again, there we go. So I don't like the range. I want to make 0 the middle. I can change what the range is. If I want to make this negative 0.14 to positive 0.14, I can use a command that is called c-axis. Oh, see, it's already yelling at me. It's telling me, oh, yeah, use clim. So let's use clim. If I do that and run that code, it changes that range again. And now I have oranger and yellow colors being positive trends, redder colors being negative trends. Maybe I don't like that range because it's really not highlighting the variability. And so I want to decrease this to 0.05 and negative 0.05. I can start to see some of that variability. So play around with this. You now have many figures possible to make. I won't tell you have to make any of these in specific. I want you to explore. I want you to think about what kinds of things you're interested in and try them out. I do think the really cool part about this project is your ability to personalize it and investigate something that you think is interesting. So hopefully one of these plots gives you an idea or two that you think would be really cool and you can give it a shot. Have fun plotting.